right, guys, we are talking risky business here. This is actually riskier than what Zach Wilson did with his mom's friend. Yeah, we are talking super risky. We are talking 5 risky running backs here that you should be careful of drafting. Now, these are big name running backs. This isn't just like, oh, don't draft Myles Gaskin or don't draft, Ty Johnson or Kareem Hunt. No, these are big name running backs that you got to be aware that they are risky. It's risky business, guys. Okay, so if you draft them, I want to make sure you know the potential pitfalls of them, right? So this is very, very important. Now, if you guys want all the answers in one spot, we're talking draft kit, right? Draft kits are dead. We know, everyone knows what a draft kit is. This goes beyond it, okay? We've got a draft solution for you, okay, guys? Get the 16-round draft solution. You guys may know it as a draft kit, but this is actually a draft solution, guys. All the optimal players to draft in each round. Sleepers, breakouts, everything you need, guys, in the 16-round draft solution. Click on the link here below. Video training, cheat sheet, everything you guys need. 16 rounds. Get it below, guys. You will crush your leagues. All right, guys? Now, let's talk about this. Let's dive into this. I mean, I'm so excited. Fantasy football is around the corner. We are getting closer and closer and closer to the season. I'm over the top excited, okay? But if you are drafting running backs early, which is what you should be doing, you should know the potential pitfalls, all right, guys? First guy that's a risky running back here, and I gotta say it. I gotta straight up say it, is James Conner. Now, James Conner is currently sitting here, and here's what blows my mind. He's high. He's 14th in standard amongst running backs. Now, who plays standard these days? Not a lot of people. If you're talking PPR, still relatively high, 15th amongst running backs, which means you got to spend a second to third round pick. I mean, that's a pretty fair value as an RB3, but he's typically coming off as an RB2. Relatively expensive. Now, understand, guys, with James Conner, he did finish 5th last year amongst running backs. He had 15 touchdowns, only 3.7 yards per carry, but only 202 attempts. This is something you have to consider and you have to keep in mind. He had a pinnacle 202 attempts. The only time he ever did that well was 2018 with the Steelers with 215 attempts, 12 touchdowns. All right, now another thing, this guy has never finished a season in his entire career. In fact, last year he only played 15 games, and that was the most he's ever played an entire season. So we got to consider durability. We got to consider he's going into his 6th season. He's had years to wow us. We're not wowed. He was very inflated last year with those 15 touchdowns. For me, he doesn't seem appealing. He just does not seem appealing in an offense where Kyler Murray scrambles a lot and, runs for his own yardage on his own. So again, James Conner, I mean, they're going to use him near the goal line. He just doesn't excite me. Again, I like more the young. I'd rather have a Breece Hall. Ceiling, talent, arguably one of the best running backs, the best running back out of the 2022 draft class at running back. So again, I'd rather go like the upside player over going a guy like James Conner. It's risky. And again, I just think he's coming off this pinnacle season. I would just be cautious if I was drafting him. Very, very risky. Second risky guy here, you've heard me talk about him in a lot of videos as a running back to avoid. And the guy I'm talking about here, again, he's so expensive. That's the thing that kills me about this guy. He's number 4 amongst running backs, coming off within the top 6, 7 picks easily, maybe even top 5. He comes off ahead of Derrick Henry in the drafts that I've been doing. The guy I'm talking about is Dalvin Cook. Now, Dalvin Cook, I want to remind you guys something. This guy busted last year significantly, finishing 16th amongst running backs. We're talking 249 attempts, which is good, 4.7 yards per carry, which is good, but only 6 touchdowns, and again, only playing 13 games. So what's the risk factor here? The biggest risk here with Dalvin Cook, guys, it's very, very simple, guys. What it is that he's going to miss games. That's the problem. It's just like, I call it fantasy football roulette. Which window of 2 or 3 or 4 games or even more is Dalvin Cook going to miss? And I want to remind you, a couple years ago, this guy missed the fantasy football championships in a lot of leagues. So that is a concern to me. It's fantasy football roulette. He's ultra expensive, very, very risky. I'm personally staying away from it. And if you draft him, understand, guys, it's a risk. It's a massive risk. And again, there's no guarantees in fantasy. Every running back's a risk, but these guys have those red flags that are just like jumping out at me at the running back position. And I'm just like, hey man, like I'm seeing a statistical history like James Conner, one good year, very touchdown inflated. Then we're talking Dalvin Cook, missing games every single year. It's like, it's not, I could see maybe if he finished 2 seasons out of his career, right? But this guy has not finished a season. He's going into his 6th season. yet to finish a full season. So that is, to me, is risky, right? It's almost guaranteed he's going to miss time. And he's been paid, he's been incentivized. Why would he go out there and destroy himself for what? He's already been paid. He's already shown his ceiling, right? We saw his ceiling back in 2020. Right? I don't see a 16 touchdown, 1,500 plus yard season Dalvin Cook, and I don't see a full season. That's almost guaranteed. To me, that's risky business. That's like Zach Wilson type problem there. Risky stuff. So yeah, Dalvin Cook is a no for me. Next guy here, and again, I don't see the hype here. I really don't. Number 3 is DeAndre Swift. Now, this guy's a guy that peaked at 151 targets, finishing 15th amongst running backs last year, and he played 13 games. So he's going into his 3rd season, and he's only had 2 seasons, 13 games in those 2 seasons. Hasn't done much. 151 attempts is his peak. That is his peak for attempts. This is a guy who hasn't finished a season his first 2 seasons, peaked at 8 touchdowns his rookie season, had 5 touchdowns last season. This is risky stuff, especially on a suspect offense. I think they take a step up this year. They made some good moves in the NFL draft. I think their O-line is a little bit better. Jared Goff gets comfortable. I don't know, man. To me, I'm going to be fading them completely because, again, it's risky. You're investing a high draft capital. Now, DeAndre Swift as my RB4 coming off round 8, 7, maybe I would consider him. But 8th overall in PPR amongst running backs, ahead of guys like Saquon Barkley, who's also risky, ahead of Zeke Elliott, ahead of guys like Breece Hall, who I think could absolutely go off, ahead of Javonte Williams, who's guaranteed 220 attempts, almost guaranteed. I mean, I think Javonte takes a step up this year, 203 attempts last year. Even Javonte, who split a committee backfield with Melvin Gordon, right? He's safer. He's got a safer floor, right? And he's ranked behind DeAndre Swift, whose years to wow us were not wowed. So DeAndre Swift, a major risk for me. And hopefully you guys are seeing the risk factor here. Suspect offense, doesn't finish seasons, going into his 3rd year. I definitely see some sort of ceiling here, but the attempts over the past 2 years are showing me that they're not going to run him on the ground. Now you can say he's going to make it up in receptions, but 62 receptions, 78 targets. Not bad last year, 452 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Maybe he gets a spike in the receiving game. But again, to me, I like a pure runner. I like a guy that's going to get a lot of attempts. I'm looking at, if I'm drafting a guy in the 1st round or 2nd round for that matter, 220 plus attempts minimum. If I see 150 attempts, the years prior or below, that's a red flag to me, and that's risky. I'm gonna go ahead and fade that, completely staying away. All right, so we talked about James Conner, pinnacle year. We talked about Dalvin Cook, missing games guaranteed. We talked about DeAndre Swift, going to be a volume issue, obviously a team issue, suspect offense. Another guy I want to say that is risky here. Actually, there's 2 guys. Let's put them as a 1-2 punch here. I'm going to give you guys a bonus. Are Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley. Both these guys are risky. Now, let me just go over them real briefly here. Saquon hasn't had a good year since 2018, had a decent year in 2019. Since then, has kind of been hurt, fully recovered, improved O-line. He's risky, but he's not as risky as a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who's coming off way earlier. Christian McCaffrey, guys, is ranked 2nd amongst running backs. That's very high for me when I'm looking at a guy who's played 10 games the past 2 seasons. New offense as well. This is not a guy, they brought in Mayfield, and they've got DJ Moore. They've got some weapons and stuff like that, but nothing to get excited about. But this is not a guy that's going to be in the similar offense that he was in 2019 where he thrived. How many checkdowns are going to be? How often is he going to get the ball dumped off to him? How much goal line work is he going to get? How often is it going to be used? Is it going to be preserved more? Because last year he needed some preservation because the guy was getting hurt without being touched. So Christian McCaffrey is a major risk for me. Simply because his ADP is very high. And again, 10 games the past 2 seasons, big red flag for me, big concern when I'm looking at a running back, especially in the top 3 picks. Saquon is also a risk, but a little bit less of a risk because, again, you get this guy late 1st round, early 2nd, you can still secure another running back, come back around, possibly get Saquon, and you're good to go. Now, Barkley's ADP has been rising significantly, so be careful of that. People are seeing the fact that he's going to be a workhorse, the fact that he was preserved last year, the fact that the improved O-line, the fact that it's a contract year, all that fun stuff. They're going to be, and he's going to be involved in the passing game quite a bit. So Saquon Barkley, again, values there, but again, a risk as well, not as much as Christian McCaffrey, all right? I'm going to give you guys one more risk here. And again, there's a ton of risk. And I'm looking at a bunch of guys that are risk here, but I'm just trying to find somebody that's higher on the ADP. And I'm going to go here with Aaron Jones. He's just jumping out at me as a risk factor for me. Why is he a risk factor, guys? This is very, very simple for me. Now, first of all, let's go over some pluses for Aaron Jones. The plus is Devontae Adams is gone. This guy's a pass-catching running back, and I've explained this in my other videos. But the fact of the matter is he's very expensive, right? He is coming off 9th in PPR amongst running backs. This is a huge problem. I explained this in my other video. I want to emphasize this fact, and I want you guys to get this in your heads. I would not invest a top 10 running back pick or a early second round pick in a running back where the backup running back is outdoing the starting running back. So this is a huge risk. You're drafting an RB1 with your RB2 and A.J. Dillon putting up better numbers last year than Aaron Jones. Now you're saying, well, Joe, receiving. Okay, well, let's take a look at the receiving yards here. Aaron Jones, 65 targets. A.J. Dillon, 35. Aaron Jones, 52 receptions. A.J. Dillon, 34. 391 receiving yards for Aaron Jones, 313 for A.J. Dillon. Not that much of a difference considering Aaron Jones is the RB1 and the receiving back. And when you look at attempts, A.J. Dillon out-attempted him, 187 to 171. 803 yards on the ground compared to 799, and 5 touchdowns for A.J. Dillon compared to 4 for Aaron Jones. So you are taking a major risk, drafting an RB2, thinking he's an RB1. So again, I implore you guys to fade Aaron Jones this year because again, A.J. Dillon is there. Aaron Jones is not a true RB1. If he was, he would have had more attempts than A.J. Dillon last year. He would have had more volume. I gauge it by who gets the most volume. That's your RB1. It's common sense. And you can't debate that because look at any other offense. Who's the RB1? Dalvin Cook or Madison? It's Dalvin Cook. Why? Because he's got more volume. Look at any other scenario. Zeke Elliott or Pollard. Who's the RB1? Pollard gets work. Yeah, but Zeke is the RB1. He gets more volume every single year. He's the RB1. So who's the RB1 here? I can safely say that it's A.J. Dillon. Am I drafting A.J. Dillon? Probably not. Maybe if I get him as an RB5, RB4 with that RB1 type upside, great. Because it's a committee, I'm going to fade it. I'm staying away, but I do like Dillon, again, as an RB4, 5 minimum with some upside. All right, guys? Again, Aaron Jones to me is a risky pick. You're drafting an RB1, RB2, thinking it's an RB1. Don't be deceived here because if you look at the numbers last year, Dillon was the RB1. All right, guys, some risky running backs. Again, I'm so excited about the season. I want to help you guys crush your leagues. Make sure you guys get the 60-round draft solution. I've linked it below. Subscribe to the channel, guys. I appreciate you being here. Thumbs up. We will talk soon. And, guys, fantasy is around the corner. Also, join the Discord and all the links below, guys. All right, guys? 16 rounds. Thumbs up. Talk soon. I'm out.